All right. Good morning and good afternoon. Good morning to our speakers in Utah, I should say, and good afternoon to our attendees from Germany, Austria, and Switzerland. My name is Brittany Banta. I'm the commercial attaché at the U.S. Embassy in Berlin. The U.S. Commercial Service and Select USA are part of the U.S. Department of Commerce's International Trade Administration. One of our key roles is to highlight the importance of the transatlantic relationship and to help continue fostering and promoting trade and investment in key and emerging sectors between the United States and Germany. One of the most important sectors to the United States and the global economy is life sciences. In fact, the United States is the largest market for biopharmaceuticals, accounting for around a third of the global market, and the United States is the world leader in biopharmaceutical research and development. The United States is also the largest medical device market in the world and is expected to grow to be valued at $208 billion by 2023. Together, these industries are responsible for more than 6.7 million jobs across the United States, employing a highly skilled and educated workforce. And Utah is at the forefront of the United States in job growth in the life sciences industry and is a leader in life sciences unicorn startups and the broader medical device industry. The state attracts a large amount of foreign direct investment across the healthcare spectrum, including established connections with major German and European companies and nimble and innovative startups. Germany is also a global leader in life sciences with a very robust and well-established medical equipment market and a focus on health and health sector related research and development and innovation. And so I'm pleased to have everybody's attention today. We see great prospects for the United States and Germany to build stronger partnerships in this sector, and today's briefing is an excellent chance for us to introduce business opportunities with the state of Utah. Our teams at the U.S. embassies in Berlin, Bern, and Vienna stand ready to support companies that are interested in expanding to the U.S. market. So please feel free to reach out to me or one of my colleagues anytime. We look forward to hearing from you. I hope you enjoyed today's presentation, and I would like to thank Franz Kolb from the Utah Governor's Office and David Carlbach from the World Trade Center of Utah for organizing this briefing today and for their support in fostering German-American business ties. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Franz, over to you.
Dankeschön. Recht herzlichen Dank, Frau Banta, für die wunderschöne Einführung. Mein Name ist Franz Kolb, ich bin der Leiter der Wirtschaftsförderung im Gouverneursbüro des US-Bundesstaates Utah. Ich möchte ganz kurz einige Worte auf Deutsch sagen und Sie alle hier willkommen heißen. Ich hoffe, dass diese Vorträge Ihnen helfen werden, Utah als Standort zu wählen. Ich persönlich bin schon seit über 30 Jahren in Utah und in Amerika und komme ursprünglich aus Salzburg. Ich habe in den letzten 30 Jahren für 6 Gouverneure gearbeitet und das Interessante ist, dass wir wirklich eine Infrastruktur hier geschaffen haben, die es Firmen ermöglicht, sehr erfolgreich zu sein. Wir haben viele Firmen aus der ganzen Welt hier, die ansässig geworden sind, natürlich auch Deutschland. Ich möchte vielleicht auch kurz erwähnen, dass Utah ein besonderes ein Abkommen hat mit dem deutschen Bundesstaat, dem Saarland, was auch sehr wichtig ist seit 1996. Wir werden auch jetzt Nonstop-Flüge haben nächstes Jahr nach Frankfurt und wir sind von Salt Lake City. Unsere Wirtschaft hier, wie Sie auch heute sehen werden, geht es hervorragend. Wir haben eine momentan 2,6%ige Arbeitslosigkeit und fast Vollbeschäftigung. Ich möchte mich auf diesen Weg auch sehr herzlich für unsere Freunde, vielen Freunde in den deutschsprachigen Raum bedanken, die über die vielen Jahre hier nach Utah gekommen sind und sehr erfolgreich auch hier in Utah geworden sind. So I would like to mention that I just briefly introduced myself and I'm excited to be here in behalf of the governor of the state of Utah, Spencer Cox. I would like to all welcome you. We have here in Utah a one-stop shop. We are grateful for our partners, the World Trade Center Utah and others that who will be presenting here. But we are the youngest population. We have in America. We are dynamic. We have been many times listed as the best place to do business. We are very no nonsense. So we're looking forward, if you have any questions, to contact us, and we will get answers to you. And we are, as I said, we are very open-minded and proactive. I would like at this time to ask David Karlbach, who's been so grateful for from the World Trade Center. And I'm very grateful for his dedication and the staff of the World Trade Center to put this together, and also the commercial service and others. I'd like to mention Shelby Dyack, who is in the Salt Lake office, and also others that have helped us. So with this in mind, welcome to these presentations. Welcome to, just like we welcomed the Olympics in 2002, and our slogan was "The world is welcome here." So we are very grateful for our friends in Germany, Austria, and Switzerland, and other parts of Europe, that everybody is welcome in the good state of Utah. Over to you, David. Please show us the video.
All right. Thank you very much, Franz. We have a very short few-minute video here to give you an excellent overview of the state. And then I'm going to say a few words about life sciences. And then we're going to get to our featured speakers, who will talk in much more depth about the regulatory environment as well as the investment climate here in Utah. So I'm going to start a video and come back to you shortly.
This is Utah, the state known as the Crossroads of the West. This is the place where people and companies come to play.
1, 2, 3, brothers. And we play with the strategy to win.
First, the country's eastern and western rail lines connected in Utah. Then, new connections developed through interstates, telecommunication lines, and airports. Utah has been and will continue to be at the crossroads of it all. Utah's highways connect to Canada, Mexico, and other major domestic markets. Our trains, roads, airports, and broadband help us export $12 billion annually in goods and services. Salt Lake City International Airport is undergoing a self-funded $3.6 billion reconstruction, with new terminals coming online in 2020. Next door, we're creating an 11,000-acre inland port. And just 30 minutes south, 20,000 acres will be developed at the point of the mountain.
These 3 Utah developments will increase international trade and investment opportunities while setting a new standard in global connectivity.
Did you know Utah was the 4th node of the original internet? No wonder mega users from eBay to Facebook to the National Security Agency have spent billions building data centers here. Utah has America's youngest median age. Each year, our world-renowned research universities graduate thousands of skilled engineers, MBAs, and computer scientists. We're also the most multilingual state, with residents who speak more than 130 languages. Our young, educated entrepreneur workforce finds creative solutions to any business challenge.
Did you know Goldman Sachs' second largest North American office is in Utah? And that Adobe is doubling its Silicon Slopes campus.
Our diverse economy is anchored in financial services, information technology, aerospace and defense, energy, life sciences, and outdoor products, each with industry employment indexes above the national average. Since 2010, Utah has been ranked a top 3 best state for business by Forbes. That includes 6 #1 spots.
It's that kind of consistency and stability that you can expect when you bring businesses here. But Utah's more than that.
Many states boast of their quality of life. With the greatest snow on Earth and our mighty 5 national parks, it's clear Mother Nature played favorites with Utah. Our public lands provide unrivaled access to the outdoors, with many places to enjoy and experience iconic Western landscapes. In town, there's a flourishing food, drink, and entertainment scene. Each year, we play host to the Sundance Film Festival. And we hope to welcome the world again at the 2030 Olympic Winter Games.
We've enjoyed unparalleled economic success. We've created more private sector jobs per capita than any other state. And we have the most diverse economy in the nation. And this isn't just a flash in the pan. It's sustainable economic development that comes from staying the course, providing fertile soil for job growth and a pro-business environment. Utah is large enough to support business growth and nimble enough to get things done. We succeed because we collaborate and find common ground, not just to solve problems, but to prevent them. We lead the nation in volunteerism and charitable giving. Utah's social cohesion is no accident. It's due to our commitment to partnership. It's the key ingredient in Utah's secret sauce. I invite you to experience Utah for yourself and see why people choose to live, work, and prosper here. Come witness Utah's exceptional quality of life and dynamic business environment. Come experience Life Elevated.
Excellent. Well, thank you for listening to that. I think it made many good points as an overview for the state. Just wanted to highlight one in particular. It was mentioned briefly in general, but is very relevant to this meeting, which is that the airport is brand new. It's now been completed. It's the first new international airport in the United States in the 21st century. And we will be adding a direct flight from Salt Lake City to Frankfurt in 2022, I think in the spring, late spring. So that's a very significant development, something we're really excited about. Hopefully the audience in Germany is as well excited about that. And hopefully that'll facilitate a lot of great new business between Utah and Europe and Germany in particular. I wanted to move quickly from the general overview to the more specific and say just a word or two about life sciences. As I think Brittany said in the introduction, life sciences is obviously a critical industry worldwide, in Germany, in the US, and in particular in Utah, and in a special way in Utah. We have leadership across many sectors of life sciences, not just these 4, but this is one way to look at it. We have leaders in diagnostics, medical device manufacturing in particular, a lot of innovative growing companies in the therapeutic space, as well as in health tech. Utah, outside of life sciences, has a very strong tech sector. We have a group known as Silicon Slopes, and in the collaborative way that was mentioned in the video, a lot of our industries work together, and certainly the software tech sector and the life sciences sector have been merging and developing many innovative companies in health tech as well. Just to say a few more words about the industry in general, a few accolades that are worth noting. The University of Utah, which is one of our flagship universities, is the #1 university for growth at National Institutes of Health grants, over $1 billion in the last year. So a lot of new money coming into the state to grow R&D in life sciences. Our life sciences industry increased by 26.2% over a recent period, exceeding the national average of 5.9%. So growing very fast relative to the US, and made it the fastest growing life sciences market in the US. It was also the fastest growing sector in the state. And in terms of medical devices in particular, We have many leading companies. We, in particular, in arterial and vascular access devices with Merit Medical, probably lead the world there, producing a huge percentage of those devices globally. And from a per capita perspective, Utah's economy has the second highest per capita employment in medical devices in the U.S., second only to Minnesota. So lots of markers of success and growth within Utah. It's also alluded to that there's a significant amount of FDI, foreign direct investment in Utah, and bridges being built between Utah and Europe and in some cases Germany. Biomuro, which is a French diagnostics company, in the relatively recent past acquired BioFire, and in a very nice transition established that office as their US headquarters. Fresenius, as many of you would know, a German dialysis equipment manufacturer, has had a major site in Utah for many, many years. France was integral in bringing them here. They now employ over 2,000 employees. Just to name another one that I have some familiarity with, Autobach, a German prosthetics manufacturer, has a significant manufacturing site here in Utah, and they're very, very happy and would gladly be a reference for anyone interested in learning more about Utah. So many markers, again, of success and lots of reasons that we hope those in the audience would think about Utah. We're going to give you a little bit more here shortly from our guest speakers and give you a deeper perspective on what makes Utah so special. I'll just say a few more words about Utah. We do have a strong education program with 4 undergraduate colleges with life sciences degrees, including the University of Utah, who I've already mentioned, BYU, a globally recognized research university granting over 2,000 degrees a year, as well as Utah State University and Weber State. We also know, and this goes back to France really in the governor's office, that you need more than college educated employees. You also need the ability to build technical workers, technical staff, and the state has put a lot of thought into building pathways to help develop talent, whether it be at the high school level or the population returning to work. So we have several pathway programs, and we also have an excellent ecosystem for innovation. We're going to hear from some of those today, including investors and venture capitalists. We also have accelerators. I'll just name one in particular that I'm particularly familiar with, which is Altitude Labs. It is an outstanding wet lab facility and incubator accelerator here on the campus of the University of Utah. It's funded jointly by the University of Utah and Recursion, which is one of the startups in the therapeutic space. It's a unicorn approaching $1 billion in market value, and they have donated really world-class lab space to become an incubator for Utah startups. It's open to anyone who applies. It's competitive. And they also have over $50 million in funding for it. So it's really a gem and is just one of several aspects of the innovation ecosystem here in Utah that I would encourage you all to learn more about. And then we also have a really rich set of other participants in the industry, including BioUtah, which is the Association of Life Science Companies, their subsidiary BioHive, which is there to market Utah globally, as well as the city of Salt Lake has a very strong economic development program focused on tech and in particular life sciences. We also have the governor's office and the governor's office of industry and innovation and others. So strong outcomes, strong infrastructure, and we're ready, as Franz said, to welcome you and help you succeed here in Utah. In the life sciences area. I think without further ado, I'm going to turn it over to our guest speakers. Again, we tried to bring a few voices with experience or perspective on Europe and Germany, but also life sciences here in Utah. And we want to turn it over to Augustina to talk to you about the regulatory framework for cross-border business between Europe and Utah. Augustina, I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you. Hi, and thanks for inviting me to speak today. My name is Agustina Susot. I am the managing director at Summa MedTech, a consulting group based in Kufstein, Austria, providing regulatory support for companies wishing to market their products globally. With over 10 years of experience in the medical device industry now, I started my career in the US, working on first-time registrations and renewals for implantable devices. And in 2018, I founded a regulatory consulting group that later grew to become Summa MedTech. Today, I will give you a brief summary of the FDA regulatory framework, and I will outline some of the common challenges that we see while pursuing the US market. Can we move to the next slide? Thank you. So we will provide you with some high-level insight that can make your experience a smoother one. Moving on to the next slide. Now, before we begin, it is important to highlight some key considerations to ensure that our clients understand the overall US landscape that applies to the product. And for this, we want to highlight three main pillars: marketing and pricing, regulatory, and the local representation. Starting with market and pricing, it is important, and you'll hear it throughout this presentation today, that it is critical to understand the market, the competitive advantages, and also the typical pricing and reimbursement structure for your product. The US healthcare system, as you may know, it's particularly complex, and it's very important that we understand that it involves additional considerations in comparison to the EU tender system. So we like to start by understanding the due diligence that the manufacturers have done before we begin with the next steps. Regulatory, as the focus of my overview today, the high-level approach involves a decision of the most optimal regulatory path, consideration of applicable guidance and standards, and the often overlooked fundamental readiness of the organization with a strong quality management system. And last but not least is the preparedness of your local representation. Sales and distribution is key, of course, but just as important is selecting that right importer and also the agent to represent your company for any FDA inquiries. And with this in mind, we can now discuss on the next slides the regulatory steps for seeking US market authorization. Let's take a look at the FDA roadmap. And as I mentioned just in the previous slide, local representation is needed. Now, larger organizations, of course, may already have US offices that are fulfilling all the needed roles, but small to mid-sized companies find it beneficial to choose a mutual partnership with a third-party representation. And these reps should have a physical place in the US. They should also assist with FDA communications, inspections, and be that general contact entity on behalf of the foreign manufacturer. Now, challenges that we see with this step is to ensure that that agent has some experience, at least, with the technology that you're bringing, but also plenty of general regulatory and quality background in the industry. And it is also recommended that US agent interacting with the FDA is not also the role of a distributor or an importer, or at least that it has a dedicated team that is not directly involved in the sales process. Now, the next step will be confirming that medical device designation. And regulations vary among all regions, and what does not fall in the category of a medical device in one territory may actually be a device defined by the FDA. So it is important to get this right from the starting point, because making an incorrect assumption for your product can result in unnecessary delays or withdrawals. And once we understand that it is a medical device, determining the risk classification will be the common next step. It is important to determine that right classification to be able to identify the most appropriate path for approval or for clearance. We are not really diving into the classification system today, but it is important to know that this step will determine many aspects of your development cycle, such as timelines, costs, testing, among other things. For example, exempt products by the FDA, they still may require proper implementation of a QMS, design controls, and compliance to specific standards. Or if a 510K is applicable, it is key to identify that best predicate device to build a strong case for substantial equivalence. Or it could be the case that innovative technologies may not have a precedent in the US, so those will have a unique registration path depending on the type of device. So the next step would be to, as part of this understanding the classification would be determining the appropriate submission route and identifying those requirements. So it is key to understand which ones are all the applicable FDA regulations and guidance documents, and that they might not match exactly to internationally recognized standards. And we need to keep in mind that when we see FDA draft guidance, it should still be considered as if it were final. And that in addition to general requirements and guidance, there are specific devices that have their own particular guidance documents issued by the FDA that still apply. And where in doubt, regarding the strategy, it is always a good idea to utilize FDA's resources, such as the QSUB program, that, even though it has its own list of do's and don'ts, it is important to get, an understanding with the FDA so we don't add unnecessary risk to the project. Moving on to preparing the submission for the FDA, this often involves the demonstration of a substantial equivalence of what many of us know as the 510K program. A weak evidence or unclear explanation of the presented data can lead to unnecessary questions from the FDA, and oftentimes further testing or justification is requested by them when there may be a lack of testing to demonstrate equivalence, a user-centric based approach is not properly implemented, or testing of rationales does not really demonstrate the safety and effectiveness of your product. And again, you must ensure that your test results are demonstrating also compliance to the FDA's recognized standards and their product-specific guidance documents should they apply. Continuing with the submission, we often see the FDA questions pointing that the data in the actual submission is unclear, or that the demonstration of compliance to requirements or that substantial equivalence is missing or is not strong enough. And for this reason, we ensure that when we collaborate with companies, that all the elements of the submission are there, and that they're also in the order they're expected to be seen. And this is also a good time to think about any potential questions that reviewers could have, because submissions almost always will result in some questions and some exchange with the FDA. And the key is to be prepared with a contingency-based response plan, often involving even early test strategy. Now, submission is in. What's next? So launch preparations at this point should be well underway, if not finalized at this point. And this would include also a fully validated and operational manufacturing, packaging, labeling processes, and of course, available stock. There is also from the regulatory side to ensure UDI entries, completion of establishment registration, device listings, import permits. All of this has to be in place before you can put your product in the market. And we also need to remember that even after launch, there are medical device reporting requirements that are actually different than the US. Now, what if your product is already CE mark? We can take a look at it on the next slide. Now, if your device already bears a CE mark, that is really a good start. You can leverage your current QMS, your ISO 13485 certificate, basic design controls, also the current DHF. But we need to keep in mind that classification of devices are different, and therefore the requirements and expectations may differ. The technical documentation submitted to a notified body is not necessarily the same as to what it is submitted to the FDA. But in all cases, we need to remember that the FDA welcomes that open communication and discussion prior to its submission. That QSEP program that I mentioned earlier will ensure that they are aware what's coming, that they can discuss with you and provide feedback on your testing strategy or your submission. And in the end, it can only lead to a higher success rate for that registration. So the next slide, that's really it for today for a quick overview of the FDA. I hope you find this overview very useful. And for further information, our team at SUMA is available to help. We can assist with in the areas of regulatory affairs, R&D, project management, quality, risk management, and usability engineering. You can contact me directly at any time if you have any follow-up questions from today's presentation, as they may apply specific to your product, or just to learn more about how we can support you. And here in the slide, in this last slide, is our contact information in our website for more details. And thank you.
Thank you very much, Augustina. You forgot to show or mention your Utah roots. And I'll just say that if anyone has questions about Utah, or maybe you can say a word or two about your Utah roots.
Well, yes, part of my experience in the U.S., like I was explaining at the very beginning, is I lived in Utah in Salt Lake City for 4.5 years. It was, I am not from the U.S. originally, and this was a very, very awesome place to live, where I still have very strong friendships there and work experience when we were in Utah. My kids were born there. So we have some ties to the region, and really it is a beautiful place to live, to visit, and of course to work there.
Okay, very good. Thank you for sharing that. That's useful, important information, at least for us here in Utah.
Yes,
thank you very much.
Yes, thank you.
Good. All right, then we'll turn it now to two of our speakers to talk about the investment scene. Obviously, we're hoping many of you there in the audience are innovative, growing companies looking for capital. And so we wanted to give you a chance to hear from two groups that are investing in Utah in life sciences and get their perspective generally on investment, but in particular on the market here. So I'm going to turn it now to Jameson from Mountain Pacific Partners.
Hello, thank you. Yes, so like you said, my name is Jameson Osmond. I'm the senior analyst here at the Mountain Pacific Partners, both in Funds 1 and Funds 2. Thank you for attending the event. I am born and raised in Utah. My background has been in venture capital. I first worked in a Utah fund here called the Sorensen Impact Fund, which focused on international base of the pyramid investments. And then from there, I moved to the Mountain Pacific Partners. I've been here for 3 years, and I also support one of our portfolio companies on the finance side. So what I wanted to share with you today is my perspective on why our fund set its investment thesis to focus on Mountain West innovation, and my thoughts on companies investing in Utah with an emphasis, again, on the life science sector. So you go forward a slide here. 2 slides, one more. Yes, so a little bit about the fund and the amount of life science here. So the Mountain Pacific Partners is a life science focused investment firm. So, and that although it focuses, and so Mountain West means Utah and its surrounding states. In our first fund, Mountain Pacific Fund 1, we invested in 13 companies ranging from therapeutics, medical devices, and its related services. And of those 13 investments, 9 of them were in Utah. We're currently kicking off our second funds, which is Mountain Pacific Fund Now and Mountain Pacific Fund Next, which the first will focus on reshoring of critical healthcare product manufacturing, and the second, reverse technology transfer and innovations in healthcare delivery and medical devices. In 2020, it was a record-breaking year for life science investment, both because of and in spite of the global pandemic. U.S. venture capital firms invested over $27 billion in life science companies, compared to about $17 billion in 2019, and that's a 60% increase across the U.S. All right, and next slide. So in Utah, we've seen a number of notable transactions. So you can see all the numbers here. BlackRock Neurotech, which is the world's leading platform for brain-computer interface technology and manufacturing, they raised $10 million. Recursion, the leader in digital biology, raised $239 million. Clean Nanomedicine, they are a They've developed a novel technology platform for the development of a new class of orally administered, neurotherapeutic drugs. They raised 42.5 million. And then you can see a few more here. There's a few that are not on the list. For example, some of the fund invested is Ivina, which is a clinical stage ophthalmology company that's developing non-invasive solutions for the treatment of keratoconus and myopia, which, both issues of the eye. And another is Promotus, which is the creator of a patient-controlled rehabilitation device to regain range of motion in the knee. And the list just goes on and on. We review hundreds of companies across Utah and the surrounding states. Next slide. All right, so like you saw in the video and some of the previous presentations, one of the reasons why the fund chose this location is because we believe that Utah is poised to become a life science leader, in part due to its geography mostly due to its geography and its economy. So, for example, we are the crossroads. So Utah is the crossroads to the US and the world. It sits at an intersection of major US highways. Like you saw, it unveiled a brand new international airport, and it's also planning for that inland port that'll connect us to more global shipping hubs. Next slide. And perhaps the greatest strength here is its economy. You can see across the list here, we're consistently ranked top in the nation for economy, economic outlook, business friendliness. During the global crisis, such as the financial crisis of 2008 and the COVID-19 pandemic, our state demonstrated an amazing amount of economic resilience. We also consistently rank highly in innovation, such as you can see here, the Milken Institute ranking us number 6 in the nation for our capacity to achieve prosperity through scientific discovery and technological innovation. Next slide. All right, and this came from David's presentation here. There's a lot of different resources that our managing partners saw when they were starting this fund. We've spoken about BioUtah, Center for Medical Innovation, the Pivot Center. The fund itself is supporting lead dog development to help give growing life science companies a larger ecosystem to support them in some of the ancillary needs that they have as they're developing their technologies, that regulatory support, supply chain support, sales, and commercialization, as well as other services such as bookkeeping and marketing. Next slide. All right. And a few more statistics about Utah. We have a very competitive corporate tax rate. We generally have a very competitive cost of doing business in the other sectors, such as operating costs, healthcare, and cost of living. And it's substantially lower than other biopharma hubs that you'll see across the US. Next slide. All right, and although this data might be a little bit outdated, it gives you a rough idea of the differences in cost of living in Salt Lake versus other major cities in the US. All right, thank you. So one of our managing partners is from New Jersey, and what really stood out to her when she moved to Utah was the spirit of collaboration that she found when she moved here. She has seen that companies that choose to make a home in Utah will find that they get more attention than they would on the coast. They find an incredible talent pool and an impressive level of diversity. For example, due to the missionary culture in the state, about 120 languages are spoken fluently here. And it's not just speaking the language. Many Utah residents have lived or spent significant time in other countries, so they understand the culture and the nuances of doing business, and making it a lot easier for the companies here to grow and scale. Next slide. All right, and then, for example, here are some of the brands that are working inside Utah. Slide. Okay, so here, it's hard to emphasize the ecosystem of support that growing companies can see in Utah, especially in the startup and the early stage. As venture capital investors, our fund believes that one of the our key responsibilities is to connect the founders and entrepreneurs to the resources that they need to succeed, and all of it is available here. So and just for a couple of statistics about Utah and Germany, about 5,500 workers are directly employed by German companies at this time. It's one of the 3 largest companies supporting Utah employees. 1 in 10 Utahns have German ancestry, and we have very large German companies that have made investments in Utah, such as SAP acquiring Qualtrics for $8 billion. All right. So, over the past year, I think we've seen more of the critical importance of life science to support the global response to COVID-19. And here in Utah and in our fund, we're committed to this sector and its role in economic development. So I appreciate welcoming you all here to the state, and we look forward to working with you.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Jameson. And we are doing an excellent time being pünktlich. Very appreciated by me, and I'm sure many in our audience. We're going to turn it over now to one more investor, as well as wears many hats, leader in the community and physician as well. Brandon Rosenhon from the Med Mountain Ventures. Brandon, over to you.
Hey there. Can everyone hear me okay?
Yes.
All right, great. Appreciate you joining us today. So my name is Dr. Rosenhon. I'm a critical care physician and came to medical school in the University of Utah and have been just basically fell in love with Utah. And then I came back for pulmonary and critical care fellowship, started a couple of medical device companies, and now we do venture. So I'll share with you our small fund strategy and then how we're growing in Utah and the great opportunities that we have. If we can go to the next slide. And we basically, so we're a Salt Lake City based venture fund doing seed stage investment in healthcare and all of healthcare platforms, including medical devices, software, services, and any company that has life science technologies. We identify promising technologies and we shepherd these companies and founders through the early stage pitfalls. David did a fantastic job of providing the overview for phenomenal growth in Utah for medical device companies like Merit Medical. The CEO of Merit Medical, Fred Lampropoulos, has been a longstanding mentor and friend. And so what we do now in the early stage out of Med Mountain Ventures, which we refer to as MMV, is we help very early stage early stage founders not only get capital, but understand how to go through the processes to get these companies to revenue generation and then through the next steps. We can go to the next slide. Yeah, so we're in our second fund. Our first fund, by all means, was successful. And as you know already, there's just a huge amount of capital now going into venture capital since about 2015. As most of you know, the decade from 2000 to 2010 was a drought of VC because there was no capital that demonstrated true ROI. But since about the middle of 2015, there's been an exorbitant amount of money that has been put into this, put at work. Our first fund was phenomenal, and we're going to scale again in fund two. We have unique opportunities because of the growing ecosystem in Utah to make us successful and make Utah companies successful, as well as our strategic and syndicate partners like Pacific Ventures. So I'm Dr. Rosenhon. I'm a critical care physician. I've done a few medical device companies, and then my partner is Dr. Tacker. Dr. Tacker is a physician and policy expert in machine learning. He did his healthcare training at NYU and then UCLA and then Stanford Business School. And then I actually had to just change this slide this week because Caitlin Roberts was a general partner, and we've had to ask her to step back because Caitlin just took a full-time role with BioHive, which again just shows the phenomenal talent we have in Utah, where Caitlin is going to, while she was the interim CEO of BioHive, which is a strong collaboration with BioUtah and the mayor of Salt Lake City. Caitlin was because of her background in aerospace engineering and now medical devices and venture, she was asked to be the CEO of BioHive, and so she'll step back and just be a part-time partner for us. But what another demonstration of incredible talent that we have here in Utah. Go to the next slide if we can. I'll go real quickly. Our thesis: we work with founders. We focus on geography that happens to do with the Intermountain. And our business thesis is that most of these early stage companies, if they don't get to revenue capitally efficient, they're not going to make it successful. And then we want to look at technology that has a 10x chance of improvement. We can go ahead and jump to the next slide so I can keep the time. Our thought leadership is our pillar here. And then we collaborate heavily with universities. And a few examples that I've highlighted are BYU, of course, University of Utah. And then I'm going to focus and then talk a little bit about the University of Hanover. And then on the dental side, we actually have a collaboration with with the Deneb Private University in Austria, which I didn't include on the slide. And then we also have companies that have been very successful with large venture investors downstream, getting Series A, Series B. And then we heavily collaborate with our companies and founders going through NIH grants and other opportunities. If we can go to the next slide now. As already mentioned by David, was Altitude Labs. We are part of Altitude Labs as part of the coalition. We're excited and ecstatic to be part of that. We've already, I attended their demo day a few weeks ago, and we're still in conversation with a few of the potential companies that are raising capital there, and I met with one of them yesterday. And at our fund in Mid-Mountain Ventures, MMV, we have a phenomenal group of diversity, and you can just see that in our first portfolio, 40% of our co-founding teams had a women founder in our company. So if we can go to the next one. This is an example out of Fund 1 of the collaboration we can have with international with international partners. So a company that was now exited and sold to Tidy Products is called Penblade. It's a safety scalpel, which I invented as a physician. And then we worked through the great mentors in Utah, the investors in Utah, like Park City Angels. And then we were able to get strong partnerships and customers like Fresenius. We went to Medica many years there in Dusseldorf. And so on the right, you can actually see Larry Cronick, Larry is an international expert in sales and has done multiple, as a matter of fact, has his own individual sales representative for his company in Germany who travels and works to continue to promote medical device innovation in the entire country and collaborate with folks there. Again, what a great, I think without the Fresenius partnership, them as a customer, without the success that we'd have going to Medica, we would, Penblade would not have been able to reach the milestone that it reached to get acquired by Tidy Products. We can go to the next slide. Another great example is ReadyPort. ReadyPort is a product that we licensed out of Intermountain. It's out of a Portfolio 1 company, but this is a phenomenal new innovative product for non-invasive ventilation, which is of course very fortuitous during COVID, where we can help patients get oral care, communicate with a microphone while they're in the ICU wearing high pressure masks, positive pressure, non-invasive ventilation. A few examples of the collaborations we have, of course, with Intermountain, University of Utah here, and then we use in the United States, Trianum, one of the largest distribution groups. But again, a great opportunity for the company at ReadyPort is to work with Dr. Kraus, as he's at the Institute in Hanover. And so he's now running a trial with our communication our microphone device with ReadyPort. And so again, another great opportunity for Larry Cronick and his international distribution partnership team, and what they're working with the local with Dr. Kraus in Hanover. If we can go to the next slide. And just one last example of how we've gone upstream and continue to expand. Epitel had millions of dollars of NIH grant, which developed their platform. And then they were able to get to a point where they needed some success on collaborating and finding great leaders. And that's what we did at MMV1. And now they're going to do a Series A with a couple of large local VCs. If we can go to the next slide. So we have a lot of collaborations, a lot of large venture funds, both in Utah and outside, and then the West Coast. And if we can go next. And we've done very well on our second fund. Our first fund, we syndicated over 25 million, even though we were a small fund. If you can go to the next one. You know, our success is phenomenal up and to the right. And our second fund is already, we've made 3 investments, and I'm about out of time. So if we can go to the last one, I'll just leave a few minutes for questions.
Okay. I'm going to stop the screen share. We're going to turn to questions for the whole group, including you, Brandon. Maybe though, I could just start with one for you, Brandon. I saw it mentioned in your slides, but I don't think you spoke to it fully, which is your thesis, your group's view on the importance of international engagement for startups or early stage companies. Could you, and again, you had a lot of examples, but could you just state what your view is on how important that is?
Yeah, I mean, I think I tried to highlight it with more anecdotes, but you're right, I didn't articulate them clearly, which is without the international success we had in Germany, at both attending Medica, also working with Fresenius, and even the same thing right now with ReadyPort, going with Dr. Krause in the University in Hanover. I don't believe that these medical device companies would have the great opportunities that they have. One that I haven't mentioned, which is we have a Dr. Michael Wilgen, who's at Danube Private University in Austria. And so we have another portfolio company called Boca Sciences, which is a dental product. And so even in Austria, we now have partnerships where a paper has just come out through the dental university there, and they're working with students. And so it is a core tenet for our medical device platforms that we go get CE mark, and then we go and we work with local local representation to go sell products and get customers. Because if you have a best-in-class, new, innovative product, you can't just sell it in the United States. We think you need to sell it in Europe and elsewhere in the world. But we've been very successful to have great relationships in Europe, and particularly in Germany. And now I've actually had a lot of work in the last week on Boca Sciences, and the paper that came out of Austria with Dr. Wolgen is incredibly successful and very helpful for that company to go do our next milestone of fundraising.
Great.
I'm not sure if that answered the question.
No, it does. It did, of course. Thank you very much. I am going to turn off the recording now. We've been recording the speakers and open this up for Q&A to the